Okay. With the other coaches, or should I just continue? Share. Okay, where is it? Okay, so if you look at Paul Alexandra in this particular inset, he makes 9 box entries and final third entries before he scores this goal. And the 7th, and on the 9th, he almost steals the game away from Chiefs. I'd like for us to the screen and look at what the player is able to do. This is a moment where he scores, and this was his 8th moment where he initiated the move. And if we watch him started the move from a deep run and continued his run into the box and to even finish it at that point, you are clear that when we do analysis, this is one of the first runs that he makes. And he keeps making all those runs prior to the goal. So what I did in the videos is that I actually showed the goal and show what the player has been doing prior to the goal. And our analysis should be informative and giving and qualifying and quantifying what the player does, as opposed to just generalizing the way we assess. And not everybody is able to see certain things in a match, and that's why analysts must be, and these are people that are looking at the game different from a coach, from where the coach is sitting, and also are able to feed off that can assist. I mean, when he scores this goal and having taken so many of these runs, analyst for Chiefs, and you have insight and you can see what's happening, you may be able to then alert the technical team about this individual that keeps doing certain things. I mean, in this insight, if you look at where he started, just below our screen, in the box, it's just phenomenal. And this tells you about the endurance capacity of this player, and where he is now from where the ball started. And these are not mistakes. These are just special we may not find as attractive because maybe of the way we look at football. But once we start looking at football in detail, more likely be able to point out exploits that are done by certain players. And I mean, this is the opportunity that happened in the 94th minute, and he had scored just minutes ago. It just tells you where players are concerned. And I know that Coach Sudesh has said it in numerous occasions when we spoke, that landscape of how analysis is seen in the country, it can't be a one-size-fits-all where people are just doing the writing seems like an article from a journal. It needs to be conclusive. And I suppose with all into the process and growing a platform for just analysis for maximal training, I'm sure the future of football is in the right place. I thank you. Thanks, Coach Ura.
Thank you, Coach Mxolisi. The floor is open for questions now, so just please wave on the icon and then unmute yourself for your questions, coaches.
Yeah, Omar, thanks. I just wanted to thank Kolis for this sorry stuff here. The idea of putting this together, we discussed with Kolis, was to come with a new way of doing football. Before, the emphasis was mainly on a quantitative analysis, whereby analysts would just talk print out and a laptop. So we wanted to come in also with the qualitative part, where a coach gives the coaching insight. And I think that is what has been missing in South African and African football. Hence, and I think Mxolisi used a good example of Bayern Munich, because we know what they achieved recently. So on more advanced ways of doing analysis, the better it is. He didn't go like the coaching methodology and the philosophy, for obvious reasons, because the emphasis was on analysis. What we would do, more detailed analysis of South African games in comparison with the European games, but that would be a bit more detailed, more on the technical side. But I think well done for this. This was just a brief introduction into where we want to take analysis and how we want to raise it onto the next level. So from my side, yeah, well done, police. Well done on that. Thanks.
Coach Mxolisi, very good, interesting presentation. One thing I would like to ask you is, how do you apply the same things you were putting to international football? Because it is substantially different from club football in that you don't much, and you have to develop your tactics, and you have to develop all your analysis in a totally different way. And it's even worse get to see their players. So how would you see what you are saying being applied to international?
Thanks for the question, Coach. It's a very important question, and for a country like, the answer would be that there isn't any conclusive information that one could be using. How our national team players that are selected based on particular stats that would be next. Hence, in my presentation, one of the things that I did mention was that countries have invested in hardware courses that a Bundesliga as a league is able to provide the national team code in as far as players are concerned. And those are the very essence of things that should exist and use the information readily available. I'm for a South African coach in the national team, it's a few games of the player and don't even play where we have access to. It becomes a bit difficult for in the South African context. If I've answered your question, Coach.
Yeah, you have. Can I just add a quick follow-on question? This applies to all of you, that if Africa was to be given more places at the World Cup, that it would actually play and coaching within Africa as a whole?
I think my principals would also chip in on this one. I don't think that the number of slots could really be a problem from where I'm and context to which we are coaching in Africa and how we are delivering playing philosophy of what that could do to a nation or to teams is what is lacking. And with fewer places, we still could be able to compete and get to the finals. I don't think the number of teams really would be helping to advance us going forward. But if we were to look holistically into our national playing philosophies and appreciate the attributes of our players, Maximal training actually explicitly speaks about that type of content. And if we go that route, the likelihood of success would be greater. And I have no doubt that in the years to come, if our principals here in the platform are the ones that are sitting at positions and are able to make sure that maximal training is absorbed as a tool in South Africa, you may find South Africa being able to achieve great heights, even when there's still 5 teams that are competing in the World Cup. And that's just my view.
I think to come in there on Satish's question, I think it's also important that we expand on that, because we have to feel hard done by that Africa does not have an equal chance compared to UEFA and South America. So more teams having a chance to participate at World Cup would also accelerate development on the continent, because then it's a greater chance to spend resources on things that they really need to improve the coach education, which we all know is in very poor shape on the African continent, to spend more resources on things like technology and analysis. Going forward in the future, if there is a concise case to push with FIFA that Africa deserves the World Cup, it would absolutely African football boost. You know, having more places there, drive the standard of African football up, and make us eventually reach to world standards. The biggest problem is obviously all African nations lack a clear playing philosophy, and that shows on the field. Crucial in this regard for the performances on the field. But off the field, I think our political leaders, football leaders, should be pushing for more places on the World Cup, so as to get countries to get more resources from the FIFA kitty, and eventually showcase and highlight our players' skills at the highest levels. Thanks.
Hello, can I come in here? Yes. Hello and good day from everybody here in Liverpool. Some valid points here today, and we have to be careful of is that we don't look at this as a top to bottom scheme or initiative. Is that we have to concentrate on bottom to top again. Is to say there has to be an overall plan again for Africa, because again what we've tended to do, the traits, the organisation of the European clubs, instead of again protracting and developing our own. We've got top coaches that don't get the opportunities as the white coaches. Again, whether we go into Europe and again the national teams, and they'll take their money out of the country and go back home with it. We have to empower ourselves, but we have to grow young coaches or young players who've got access to quality coaching at the ages of 6, 7. Again, as I say, the product then improves at the top end, where you, again, as I say, you've got coaches throughout the system who know, again, as I say, the coaching philosophy. And I think that was a great point, again, what you made before, is that we have to have a philosophy. At the moment, again, everybody's doing their own thing and not working together as a continent. And really, again, we should be going to FIFA and saying, this is what we want, not can we have. Because again, you've exploited us for a number of years. Our top players have been coming into your European leagues and making them what they are. So why don't you put something back into the coffers here of African football and support it? But I think, as I say, some really good valid points. on the analysis, but there's just one point I'd like to make, is that we have to be careful that the analysis doesn't take over the point of the coaching. Because at the end of the day, again, as I say, as a coach or as a manager, you have to make that final decision. And I think it's a really relevant point what you were saying, is that you've got people who are doing analysis now who think that the top managers and top coaches and they're advising, and as I say, they're usurping players again who've played professional football at international level. And these guys, again, who've never played football, are usurping them with their ideas or their analysis of this is what's right and this is what, again, and most coaches, again, should use analysis as a tool, as like a library, a reference. If you want to go and reference something, you go to your library, but you don't use that as your Bible, as your philosophy. The analysis, again, is all to help a coach and help clubs and help teams of how to overcome the opposition. But it shouldn't be replacing the manager as a tool of interjection. Yes, gentlemen, any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Hence, when I started the presentation, I did say that these myths that exist where analysts think that they then can be coaches, there must be a distinct difference between an analyst, which is a specialized role, and a coach. And you've also explicitly explained it further to support the notion.
Yeah, I think Howie made a good point and Satish expanded on. I think also this is something ex-players, you know, we're always saying ex-players are struggling for jobs and to get back into the game. So I think this, how do we empower a select group of ex-players who might not be willing to go into coaching or not have that kind of coach, but could obviously become a very good analyst, you know. So I think that expands the football pool even wider. So I think that's a good point both Satish and Howard made. But the important thing we are trying to emphasize, and Howard re-emphasize on it, is that it should not take away from the responsibility of a coach. And we know, especially we know what we talk about here in South African football, and we've been seeing it. Howard would probably know in English football. It's also starting to become it should be a complementary aspect to coaching, not a kind of somebody who wants to take over the role of a coach. You know, it shouldn't be a nuisance factor. It should just be something that influences and helps the coach, an additional tool that he could use. So hence we decided to put together this presentation just to give an idea to coaches of it. But I think by having this here, there's a lot of good ideas that came up that we can sit with and take forward, going into both the way we do our sessions and the future of how we redesign coach education for Africa. Howard made a very, very important point about not a top-down approach. It should be from the bottom up, and that is what we've been preaching for decades. You know, if we don't start on the bottom, going up, we will never build something solid where Africans be proud of something. We'll always be having foreign coaches imposed on us, and us following whatever they come in and talking about. And in that way, our philosophy will never exist because it will always be diluted. So I think having this platform and sharing ideas and always coming around different key topics around coaching, it enhances the discussion. Always be about empowering African coaches, and also we have some coaches from outside Africa here, by the way. From India, we have Boyce Kumalo, who's based in the USA. So we're talking about developing coaches holistically in developing nations, not just in Africa. The majority of the coaches are obviously from South Africa and Africa, and that's our key priority. These sessions have been helping people a lot, and it's been enhance a lot by having someone like Satish on board, who's an author, a journalist, a researcher. Howard Gale, we all know, is a former legend of Liverpool, and the insights that they come with and the advice they give is critical in driving this mission forward. So from my side, it's always a pleasure to have them on board, you know, because it by keeping things small and close, we never grow. We have to open it up as much as possible. I also had a request from some other coaches in the USA, but because of time difference, they could not attend. But they're always watching the recordings that we post on YouTube. So Howard knows that what the work we are doing behind the scene. I've been chatting last week with Noel Blake. He's busy working on a document that he's going to be presenting to us in the coming weeks. So eventually we will have a movement that has started on this platform here that's going to grow to huge strides, not just in South Africa, but on the African continent, and hopefully we take it beyond, because the Black Coaches Association of America are also waiting for us to come up with a joint document with the UK legends, and then they will join on board. The Caribbean coaches, the coaches obviously of Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, the West Indies, all of that. And I think once we get this movement off the ground, I don't think there's anything that's going to stop us anywhere. Even people like FIFA, CAF, confederations around the world will have to start listening, because we are not just talking, we are coming with solutions, and we're coming with solutions that we have come up with, not solutions that are imposed on us, you know, by FIFA or by CAF or by white people from wherever. It's localized solutions that we're coming up. So I'm always thankful, Satish knows, to him, to Howard Gale for their inputs and their advice from time to time. And I just want to emphasize again, Satish mentioned a very key point. Why can't we get ex-players into analysis? Because we know presented this is one of the few so-called analysts, but he's also a coach, you know. That's why he gives such a deep analysis. Analyst who works for a South African PSL team. The guy has no coaching experience, no playing experience. He's just somebody who's, then he just gives a very cold, detailed expression of what he feels, but he's got no insight into this. So I think the more we bring football people on board, so we got to look for the right kind of former players. Their playing career and because of past background might not have access to technology. So we need to look for those kind of can quickly be upskilled and equipped with technology and on how to use technology and get them into the game as analysts and into the game, into clubs, into SAFA, into federations. The better, the quicker, the better. So that was a great idea, Satish. Thanks for that input. And then Howard, always for your inputs on empowering locals. That is the key thing. I don't know if you guys wanted to add anything on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to add something to it. There are certain funding various FAs and confederations have. If you have a situation where the real problem is you have older players who do not have access to technology, it cannot cost a fortune to get that technology. If you're provided, say, for example, you have a particular club, why shouldn't the club provide the technology needed? If it's a laptop or things like that, it's not that difficult. I mean, how much does a laptop cost to a football club? And can't they actually get it back from, claim it back from the local FA or their local organization or CAF or whoever? And just to add to this a little bit, the reason I have this idea is Akim Musenge, the former Zambian captain, he is elderly in football terms. He's reached an age where football people will not give him a job, will not give him a chance, will not give him anything because they think he's too old to deal with modern football. All that shows is they're too stupid to actually learn from him, because if you actually listen to him, he can teach you how to defend. And he does it in such a way that if you actually listen to him, it's so obvious once you've actually heard what he has to say. You think, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, can I just come in again? I'm just on that point again, Satish, is that all of the things again that we do have to be in our people, including the women's game, including those generations that have gone before us and suffered, and again never really got the sense out of football of what they should have. But we should really again be inviting them onto some sort of board, whereas they become the advisory committee, or the committee again that would adjudicate on disputes or whatever. If you've got people like that again, who've got that experience, they can become of use to us in the future. But we can't go down that road of excluding people, because that's what colonialism has taught us over the last 450 years, is that they divide and rule us. We want everybody to be on board with this. And another way of looking at it is sponsorship. Is that all the local businesses again around football, they're going to benefit from this. So it's finding again a niche where we can approach local businesses and ask them to invest in the communities that they're in. Again, people are going and buying different things again within the community. Those businesses again should then support the community, even if it's sponsoring a local team, or what you've just said, Sat, by providing a laptop or video analysis equipment for those clubs again to be up to speed again with other clubs. You could even set up a hub where a number of clubs can go and use video analysis machines and equipment for their own spec. Because again, it is difficult for everybody again, as I say, because I know within football here in the UK, it's hard to funds again to run football clubs. So again, clubs who would have to spend money on a video analysis machine, which of coaching sessions or of water or of kits and equipment and stuff like that. So there are different ways again of and bring local communities together by asking local businesses to join in the local community, or providing funds for sponsorship into those football clubs.
Just from my side,
Yep,
just some caution. Coach Mxolisi, he mentioned he used Bayern Munich and Hansi Flick as an example, a case study, and we can see that the three coaches in the semi-final, all of the Champions League, all coming from Germany, and all part of that national coaching and playing philosophy, all also earning their stripes in the lower leagues, in the academies. So we must be very cautious where we're going to introduce, and we see the type of analysis that's being done on our national TV as well as European television, where it comes to the Champions League and your PSL and your EPL, and the poor quality of analysis that's being made by those ex-professionals that has been fast-tracked out of a playing career straight into an analysis position, straight into a coaching position, and failing dismally. I'm just using one example, a Gary Neville, a Steve Bruce. Champion players, successful professionals, pathetic coaches, pathetic analysis that they give. So we must be very cautious where we're going to fast track these people. Yes, ex-pros need longevity in the game, in whatever, because their retirement age is very different to our retirement age in a mainstream employment of 65 years. Their retirement age kicks in after 30 years. So they need another 30 years of employment to secure their livelihood, to secure their lives up until 65. So we must be very cautious in just introducing them and them not having the education and the development in particular positions where they can serve the game. I just want to put that out there. I know a lot of people are very critical of me saying the ex-pro entitlement and the fast tracking and the privilege that some have in getting into positions overnight.
Mm. Really good point. Really good point. Can I ask a question? Have a facility like what they have in France of Clairefontaine, or what we have is the National Academy. The best talent goes to that academy, and you have the school and the nurturing. They actually live there and go home, say for maybe 1 day a month. But they're taken out of the communities and park. You're right. Thank you, Satish. And they're nurtured. I'm wondering whether South Africa has the same sort of, because again, it seems that they have all the nuts and bolts in place, but the strategy for youth development and that strategy again being passed from to be relevant, which is relevant. What I see again is I see coaches from all over the world who can't find jobs in their own country making their way to Africa to get a job, and because of the colour of the skin, they're deemed to be more clever and more. As I say, it's a condition that we've adopted, or we've let ourselves into, and we have to have that faith in ourselves as coaches, as human beings, as Africans, and as people, that we can develop our own kids into winners. All the best teams in Europe are full up now of black players, because the modern day game is based on pace, power, skill, and agility. We're born with that. We don't have to develop. We're born. It's in our DNA. So all the clubs now are loading themselves up. My club here, Liverpool, again, they just won the league by a record amount of points, because 90 and other teams now are running around all over Europe to bring in black players to match them. And that's the way the game's going. But that's in the past, and this is a point again, or a level that they've tried to stop with black coaches and black, that barrier down. We've done it with the what's the name, with the playing side of it, and it took us a while to do that over the stereotypes. But seeing black again at Wolves now, he's brilliant. Is it Santos? He's transformed that club into a club where there's everybody looking at them now and looking at their playing style. And for again, a black coach who's been able to establish himself in is a real plus point. But it's a question again of whether the other clubs are brave enough to go down that same. Is, do you want a black coach or a black manager who's heading up your business? And that's again, it's a narrative that and a complicity that we have to face all around the world, is where our values are judged on the fact that we're knowledgeable, that we're good players, we've been good players, we've got the commitment, we've got the dedication, we know the skill base, and we know the subject. Because again, as I say, I've seen it even with myself, coaches, how they treated me, because they didn't understand my culture, and they'd be chatting things like, you know what I mean, like a war in front of me. And when I fire back at them now, and I'm going to be wanting to box a coach, is that he sees it that I've got a chip on my shoulder. And that's how I've always adopted myself. Again, my colour has always come first, whereas modern day players now is that they listen to all of this and they don't speak out about it, because they're subservient to the pound note or to the dollar. And that's who their master is. And a lot of modern or don't use principle as the matter for the way forward, because they're not concerned about who's following behind. Or they, I've got to make as much money as I can. To hell with who comes behind me or who's being in front. That mentality that we've adopted, it's a conditioning. It's not a mentality. It's a conditioning that we've been led down that path for. And we have to start believing in ourselves and the skill base and the knowledge that we have to be successful.
Agree totally, Howie. And I think these kind of platforms and unity with people, with black people from all over, because even in Africa, black coaches here, but inside them, they are actually white coaches because of the way they coach and they see the game.
Yeah.
So that is all because of all these years of colonialism, that black person mimics, that he forgets his own roots, and you know that's tragic. And that's why we have this issue of identity in Africa. Clear identity. There's no philosophy because we just follow anything that comes from Europe. Yes, we can learn a lot from the organization and everything, but we have to know who we are and what's the strengths of our players and our football, you know. So I don't know how we will work towards eradicating that conditioning, but these kind of sessions, sharing ideas, and yourself and others in UK to come on board and talk about their experiences, share their experiences. I think a lot of the young get highly motivated by that, you know, and know that they are going in the right direction. Because I always preach at the coaching workshops that identity, don't become a second-rate Pep or a Klopp or a Guardiola or a Mourinho or anything, you know. Define yourself. Don't copy others, you know. So I think as black coaches, we first need to know who we are, because we always want to imitate and mimic whatever comes from Europe. So I think the conditioning that the impact of colonialism has had over centuries, 300 odd years, it's had a devastating effect on all of us. And these kind of platforms and sessions must go on, and we take it wider, as I said, with the people in USA, Caribbean, the rest of Africa. But we need a strong coaching methodology, a strong philosophy behind us that we can say this is what we have come up with. You mentioned Nuno Espirito at the Wolves. Yes, he is a classic example of what if a black person given a chance, what can do. Newton, all the great work he's done in the recent years. We know about Hope